Hello and welcome back to Get Kafkanated, the show where we explore the fascinating world of Apache Kafka, from architectural deep dives to the people who make it all happen. I'm Hugh, your host, and today we're diving into cross-cluster replication, the KIP process and what it means to be a Kafka committer. I'm delighted to welcome Omnia Ibrahim, software engineer at Apple and Apache Kafka committer. Welcome to the show, Omnia.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you here. I know this is one that I've been very excited about, and a lot of the team at Ivan have been excited about too. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Yeah, I've been excited as well to join.
Hey, amazing. So jumping right into it, you're an engineer at Apple and you're a Kafka committer. How did your path of your career lead you to having this big role in the Apache Kafka project?
I would say running Kafka on a scale in general, as a user, you learn a lot, and at some point you start to notice that out of running Kafka for a really long time, you have experience that worth sharing. You either notice that feature you really need that is not there, bug fixes that need attention, or just as simple as there is something the community is working on, you're really interested in, or you have concerns about it, and you wanted to make sure that your voice is there. So it at some point it makes sense that you as individual get involved, and also for your company will be also supporting you doing the same, because this is improving the health of a very important project in their infrastructure as well. So it's beneficial for everyone, for individual, for the community, for organizations as well.
That makes a lot of sense. So yeah, you ending up kind of making that journey from contributor to committer because of your investment in the project over a long time and your employer's investment. Awesome. For listeners who might be less familiar with the difference between being a contributor, being a committer, how does that impact your relationship with the project?
I would say in any Apache project in general, people the project need to have some safeguards who check the code quality, review proposals, and someone that makes sure that there is a long-term vision that is stay intact, and the philosophy of the project as well. There is some decisions that is deep core in the project that you can just go against it. For example, in Kafka, Kafka is a bull-based model. You can't just decide tomorrow that I'm gonna push something that make it push model, for example, stuff like this. But for someone to do this, they need to from the Apache point of view, you need to make sure that they have a commitment to the project, and they have time, and they have also enough knowledge to provide a constructed feedback on proposals or people in code, and guide others within the community as well to get to the same place, or to get their proposal also accepted. While regular contributor not asked for all of this, they don't necessarily have need to submit for this commitment longer term, unless they want to become a committer, of course. And so a contributor usually you can contribute a bug fixes or a bug report, or you review other people's work, engage in public conversation, stuff like this. You also can have your voice by casting non-binding vote, which is basically saying that you are not a committer, but you are interested in this feature. It's very important. I don't see a lot of people do it that often, but it's actually a very important sign for the committer that this feature people need when we see a lot of non-binding votes. While committers, they have different responsibility. They don't just commit code, they also merge other people pull requests. They are the ones that actually have the final say of what is voted into the project. That's what we call binding vote. So each proposal usually need 3 committers to vote on it. This we treat it as lazy majority, or you need to have more +1s and -1 from the committers.
Awesome. I think that's a probably one of my favorite explanations I've heard thus far of like the role of committers as like stewards of a project like that, right? Of, you know, like, yes, it's contributing lines of code, but also it's like helping other people do the same thing and shepherding the project. Amazing. So, you know, we've spoken a little bit about your role as like a contributor and as a committer. I think it's worth talking about like one of the more recent examples of that, right? So, it's very rare that people have nice things to say about Mirror Maker, which I think is probably what's led into your current project. But what doesn't work about cross-cluster replication today that kind of inspired you to start working on this with such a major KIP?
I think if it is like, I know that a lot of people say don't have a lot of nice things to say about Mirror Maker, but if we look at the history first, it was the right, like it's the step that made more sense at the time. Like we had Mirror Maker 1, and which was like basically a vanilla consumer producer, consume from one side, produces other one, and it had a lot of issues about scalability, and it doesn't support the DR well and all of this. But at the same time, the community was investing a lot in Apache Connect. So using this investment to improve the mirroring and do the Mirror Maker, I see it as like natural step. We already spent a lot of time in a feature that can be expanded to fix the problem, at least partially. But at the end of the day, like it was just a step in the road. It wasn't like the final, like it's not the final one. And probably even any solution will not gonna be the final one until like we just like have every single feature in Kafka can be a DR, and every use cases can be supported, and it's really hard. But if you wanted to say like what is not working right now is, right now the only way, and this is not just Mirror Maker, this is every other solution that exists in the community right now, is to run external service that consume from one side and produces the other one. And it makes sense because you will have like single solutions that can cover a broad wide use cases of cross-cluster replication, not just DR. Like cross-cluster replication is not just about disaster recovery. You also have an active-active situation, or you wanted to fan in or fan out. So there is not one flavor of cross-cluster replication. But running an external service comes with a lot of limitation, especially with something like Kafka. So for Mirror Maker, if we're gonna talk about, because this is like the official one and the scope of what we are trying to replace, one of the things, for example, it has a lousy offset translation, which is the core if you wanted to have a DR, because part of the disaster recovery, you wanted to make sure when a consumer fail over to the other clusters, they can continue from the same index or the same offset that they stopped at source. But Mirror Maker rely on loading everything, every equivalent offset between source to destination in memory. Then they try to map this for the consumer groups. And this in memory is like has a limitation, like for how much can you have in memory. I believe there was an improvement recently, like a bug fix recently by Greg Harris. He's like one of our committers to improve this. But at the end of the day, like you run with something that have a history of too many bugs for single feature in the whole project. It's also like, it's very operational costly to run another service, because you will need to have multiple Kafka connectors for every time you have like more, like the more you have clusters in Kafka itself, the more connectors you will need to link all of these clusters together. And running Kafka clusters themselves is not easy, let alone running a connect on top of it just to mirror data. So this burden doesn't go away in any of the solution, neither Mirror Maker or any other service that will be running in the same model. And there is other things that natively, anything that external from Kafka cannot support. For example, to do the compression, you will need to read and like decompress and compress again. This is a cost. You can't natively protect the order because you are running on a goodwill that no one will fail over mistake, like no one will spend two producers, for example, producing the same topics, and it's changing the order of your data. So this protection cannot happen from anything outside of the brokers themselves. Right now, people have some work around it by like revoking ACLs and then applying them again on fill back and fill over. But this is very ugly because this is another third party, a third service that running externally that need to revoke and apply every time. So this is like the major one, but there is another category of limitation when you try to support advanced users, like Flink, for example, or Spark, or Kafka Connect even, or Kafka Stream. All of these, they are very sensitive because they store their offset outside of the normal consumer group. Like Flink has their own local, and Spark as well has their own local consumer management, where the offset is stored locally at their side. Kafka Connect is stored, at least for source, is stored at internal topics. Kafka Stream has similar situation, not for the consumer offset, but for stuff like changelog or repartitioning or stuff like this. And if you keep it remapping and it's changing the offset between destination and cluster, you are, for these customers to do a DR or migration between cluster, they need to have another step to remap, like reverse engineer what Mirror Maker done, basically. And if you are in incidents, this is very ugly. Like this is just an RTO that you need to do. It's the same like if you're trying to do migration, for example, with Mirror Maker. The only way to do migration, you need to stop everything on the source side, do a drain until the lag becomes 0. Then you move the producer to the other side. And this is also like not acceptable thing, because you mean this put people off migrating from one infrastructure to another infrastructure, even if it's the right decision for them, just because they will need to pay for this downtime somehow. So it's very tricky. It's like it has a lot of limitation. And the last one is like, if someone came to you today and say, I wanted to have a 0 data loss, you can support it. Or if you wanted to have a data loss for stuff like migration, for example, why you need to drain is because you wanted to have a data loss, and the order need to stay the same as in the same time. So you do the stop and drain button during migration. To do like a full support of transaction, you need to make sure that everything, all the data exists in both clusters. Otherwise, this is data loss, because this is not exactly once, basically. So you get to a point where you can't even extend it to support other use cases.
It's very interesting, like seeing the kind of breadth of things that present issues to Mirror Maker, right? With it being this kind of like problem child of the Kafka project, where it's like uses a lot of memory, there's a lot of issues with it, but like all of that seemingly like stemming from the complexity of the problem, and perhaps like the architecture and the logic behind how Mirror Maker works, not necessarily being equipped for that complexity.
Yeah, it's hard to have like a silver buoyant solution here.
Yeah, that makes sense. But with that said, obviously you're working on KIP-1279 at the minute, which is this kind of like potential solution to this problem. So like, what does your kit propose, and what does it actually change for teams that are running multi-cluster Kafka versus all of the issues with Mirror Maker we've just discussed?
Yeah. So I think like if you look at the main problems that Mirror Maker is having, is one thing is it's another thing that you need to run. And you're already running a huge thing, which is the Kafka Connect, the Kafka clusters themselves. The whole remapping of offsets and the unmatch of metadata in general means that you cannot support and extend your support for other use cases, especially if we are talking about DR. Like if we just like focus on the disaster recovery, which what any data stores that you will have, whether this is Kafka and streaming services like Kafka or database, these platforms need to have a solution for disaster recovery without customer trying to do their own workarounds or stuff like this. So we needed to get over like, how can we have the metadata, not just the offset, but the whole metadata as much as we can exactly the same, and don't run another sync. This is like the main two things. And if you look into Kafka, the existing ones that we have, the only protocol that can replicate data and its metadata, or most of them, intact is the internal protocol for the replication. So the whole idea is a straightforward, like, can we expand the internal replication protocol, which been running for as long as Kafka been run like as Kafka existed. We all trust and we know that it's working very well. Can we build on top of this and extend it to have a concept of a remote replica? Can we add another replica that doesn't belong to this cluster and read from it? So the KIP is basically saying that each destination cluster can create a mirror, and this mirror is linked to a source cluster. And you can, like the operator of the destination, can add topics to this. They can configure the topics or configure the mirror with a specific authentication that they should have on the source. And then behind the scenes, the feature will start to say, this topic is mirrored. This is not like normal topic. So no one will be, I'm not expecting a producer for this thing. So it will be read only. So no one can write to it at all. Like no producer can write to this topic. Only the replication protocol can write to this one. So we fence the topic. And this will make sure that no one by mistake will bypass your system and try to produce and change the order or change the offset. And this is very fundamental thing because you need the data to be exactly the same. It's similar to Kafka. You cannot write to a follower at the moment. The leader is the main one that makes sure that everyone is following the same order and the same data and metadata as well. So the leader of the destination will start, only the leader of the destination will start to fetch from the source. And then the local replicas on the destination, instead of them reaching out to source, they will reach out as normal to their leader. This is just like to reduce the connections. We don't want to storm the source cluster with too many replicas. So by doing this, we preserve it the same offset. We have the same leader epochs. We also have the same topic IDs, which is very critical to support other feature, like to do like many features in Kafka rely now on the topic IDs and not the topic name, because we've been trying to move from the topic name for a long time, and either we have the combination where topic name and IDs exist, or you have only the IDs, but you need the two to become the same. And other stuff like timestamp is still the same as well. And the others that we can't take as it is, we try to, like there is some, like the producer IDs, for example, we can't take the same producer ID between clusters because the range is different, would be different for a producer IDs and destinations and source. And there is a whole like a whole section about the producer ID in the KIP. Will be like, it will take a long time to speak about it and how it's been solved. But I would say like people should go and read this one. So we have this new type of feature. It's called mirrored feature. And this is the one that will run on the leader of the destination to fetch from the source. And from the source perspective, this is as normal replica. It's just not part of the ISR. So it's not tracked as the acknowledgement because this is async, or like the KIP that we have at the moment is async. There is a follow-up to have it async, to have the zero data loss or the reduce the migration window for downtime and stuff like this. But for the core one is async. And to manage all the metadata, we have a coordinator that keep like a mirror coordinator. This is a new one we are introducing. And this is keeping basically all the details like per mirror, per topic, or the state of the mirroring for each partition, and is storing all of this in internal topic, like similar to any coordinators that Kafka has. And on top of this, we have another manager for the mirroring that go and fetch, like have schedules to fetch and refresh the metadata for things like topic configuration, for example. You change your attention. This doesn't come from the replication protocol. This come from the topic image on a single cluster. So you will need to have this propagated to the destination. ACLs as the same, so not part of the replication protocol because this is a different side of Kafka. You also need the consumer groups for the topics that you are mirroring, so you need their offset. But now this is more simpler because you don't need to figure out the mapping and the equivalent offset. The offset is still the same, like it's exactly the same. Just like take it as it is and that's it. So that's like in a nutshell. The whole
yeah. I think I'll follow up on this in a second of like the scale of this as a project, but it's so interesting hearing about all of these different like the complexities here. And it's like, sure, you have all of these like sort of the issues that are caused by MirrorMaker being external to Kafka that are solved by you taking this really cool approach of like treating the remote as if it's like part of the cluster using that internal protocol. But yeah, just the scale of everything that's still left to be figured out is super cool. What has that process been like with you, working on this KIP and, solving all of these different problems? I know before the show, we were talking a little bit about almost kind of the funny story of how you came to be sort of collaborating with people on this project, which I thought was cool too.
Yeah. So the story behind like how the collaboration in this project happened is there was actually another KIP proposed in 2023. I think this was 986, which is a cross replication from Greg Harris. But the KIP sadly was like shut down and become inactive because it was just like a list of features that we wish a cross-cluster replication would have, but it didn't go in a lot of details on how the design would look like. And this was the reason why like it was like paused or becoming active for a really long time since 2023 because like we needed more detailed design to accept any proposal, especially something with this size. Anyway, so I think last year I was thinking about the same thing. I wanted to build the same thing because I have a lot of problems with MirrorMaker and I'm not happy with it. And I reached out to Greg after I had like initial design, and he said like, oh, by the way, Luke Shane, which is another committer, is also reached out to him that he has a proposal, an initial proposal for the same thing. And we met with Luke and the team that is working with him on this. And we actually figured out that we have a lot of overlapping with our designs from both sides. And we decided to join forces instead of each one of us like work alone. So you will see like people like Luke, you have Federico, myself, we have also Bon Yang, he's also a committer, and we have others committers and contributors from open source for you community in Taiwan as well. There is some of them that were working on the proof of concept and the brainstorming of the design of this as well.
It's so cool to me, like seeing the scope of the collaboration on this. I mean, I think it shows what a cool idea and what an important project this is for Apache Kafka. So obviously this is like a work in progress, right? Like you are still building this and designing this and kind of figuring out where it goes. For teams who are like today running, active or active passive Kafka clusters, what should they be doing whilst they, wait excitedly for KIP-1279 to land? Are there scenarios, post KIP-1279 where MirrorMaker 2 might still be the right answer? Or are there things people can be doing now to get better results with MirrorMaker whilst they're waiting for KIP-1279?
So I think like it depends on what they are supporting. So if they're using MirrorMaker basically for DR or for migration, like active migrations that haven't frequent, they will need to keep using MirrorMaker for this because they don't have any other option. But try at the same time like figure out a path for how they can migrate from MirrorMaker to the cluster mirroring and share it with us as well, because one of the things that I said, like, we relying that everything gonna be exactly the same identical. This will include as well like topic name and topic IDs, so you can't reuse the same topics that you had from Mirror Maker and say I wanted the same topic to become the destination of the cluster mirroring, because they will have different topic IDs, different offsets. All of this will complicate things. In terms of like, is Mirror Maker still an answer for other things? It's still like if you're doing a fan in or fan out, or you aggregate like, let's say you trying to aggregate multiple cluster into one topic, or if you're doing active in terms of like cycle, like same topic, and you have active producers the same size producing the same topic, this cannot be supported, at least by the current design and the current aim, because the offset will be really hard to keep between two clusters that is producing at the same time as well. So there is still use cases for mirror. Like, it's not gonna disappear. Mirror Maker is still, or like any external service that you use for other cross replications that is not DR or migration, they still, or simple active passive, where you actually an active passive, where like one is passive and one is active. This is like the new cluster mirroring will fit. Anything else is still whatever what you have.
So yeah, Mirror Maker still well suited to the role it seems to have fallen well into, which of like plumbing Kafka topics together and Kafka clusters together. But
yes,
yeah, worth starting to think about now what that migration will look like. It's kind of reminded me of conversations we've had on the show last year about the Zookeeper to K-Roff migration, in terms of like some of the nuances of that change being worth thinking about a long time in advance. So we've spoken on a lot today about your role as a committer on the Apache Kafka project. Obviously, the day job is as an engineer at Apple. Without getting into anything too proprietary on the Apple side, what does operating Kafka at Apple's scale, in this world where organizations of this size don't use vendors for Kafka or streaming, like basically all large orgs like roll their own Kafka. What does that scale teach you that you can't learn anywhere else?
I think, as you said, like the scale is unique for large organization. Like there is a difference between the pain you will see if you are running 10 Kafka clusters, not the same if you in other companies that run hundreds or more than hundreds. It's also different, like environments. What can you use or what can't you use? What security you have in place by your organization that is different than others. But for example, we contributed the gbot in the key raft mode, which, because like it's if people are not familiar with the gbot, is the way in Kafka that you can run multiple disks in the same broker. And in the initial phase of Keyraft, the gbot wasn't going to be released. It was going to be released without this feature at all, assuming that not a lot of people use this feature. But few organizations actually, as specific scale, they still use or they have their own data centers, and they wanted to have more control over how they run and where they run as well. So they need this, and we were one of them. So instead of we just like react and try to change our whole pipeline to fit a new thing, we decided that actually we wanted to have the support for this feature. And the only way, because it's a very few organizations that need it, we actually spend the time to introduce it to Kafka. It's also like running on a scale with too many teams using you, and on the scale of data, you will see some challenges that not a lot of people will see. For example, there is a well-known challenge related to the producer ID, and this was introduced when the idempotent to become the default. If you go to the mailing thread, you will find like there is a conversation was, if I remember correctly, was initiated by Justine from Confluent. She's also a committer. And she was asking if anyone actually seeing this problem, which is basically you see an out of memory because the producer ID keep growing infinitely if a producer is configured or misbehaving and keep creating sessions in an idempotent mode. And at some point, you will have one broker go down and the rest of the cluster follow because everyone will go out of memory. And it was only Justine, Luke, and I who actually noticed that there is such a problem in this. And we have like KIP-936, which was like an attempt to throttle the active reducer IDs, but because like even that it didn't go through because to actually solve this problem is very complicated, and we came to a conclusion like maybe not worth solving this complicated issue just for three organizations and nothing, because the rest of the community never saw it at all. So things like this, like you running Kafka on a scale, you will start to notice. You will start to notice things that uniquely not everyone else will see.
That's super interesting. I've heard about this occasionally before with like very large scale deployments of like anything, where it's like you kind of get that like sort of monkeys and typewriters situation where like you're going to run into very unlikely things that don't happen at small scales. Interesting too, thinking about how different a tool Kafka is for you at that scale and the considerations you're making. I think we've seen similar things with rack-aware partitioning, where it's like, you know, out in that internet scale Kafka world, it's so different managing Kafka compared to, you know, 2 or 3 topics with a couple of dozen partitions.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, the committers and the active contributors on Kafka, they are from a small set of companies. The wider community who use Kafka are totally different, and we need to like keep encouraging more people to join the community, either to contribute and report things that they are seeing, or work closely with someone to get improvement for the project.
Definitely, and yeah, I think if that's one thing people take away from episodes like this, please support your local open source project. You know, get involved.
Yes.
We're always looking for more contributors.
But I think the biggest thing is that everyone can contribute is their experience of running Kafka. This is the biggest thing that people can do.
Definitely. So obviously, like 1279 right now is kind of the state of the art for cluster replication, right? Like it's this huge collaboration. There's lots of exciting stuff happening. Looking forward to the future, though, you know, like working on a solution like this, I feel like gives you a unique perspective into like potential areas where you'd like, oh, if we had more time, or if things were different, we'd build it differently, we'd build it better, right? You know, looking forward to the future, where do you see cross-cluster replication going? Like, I know there's a lot of excitement about proxies at the moment. Is that something you could see potentially being a potentially an alternative or a more useful solution in future?
So there is in the ecosystem community of Kafka, like around Kafka, not Apache, Kafka itself, there is an attempt in Proxylicious proxy to have the concept of rerouting requests from one cluster to another. But if we're talking about proxies solution in general, there is few things that like we need to have a proxy that has these. Like we can't just like say any proxy can solve the problem. So one of them, you need a source of truth for actually which part is the primary, which one is the secondary that you redirect your data to. And right now, as far as I know, the proxies that exist, or like the famous ones that exist in the community, doesn't run with a specific this store that you can have. And even if it has, we need also to make sure that the store that has the source of the root is scalable enough that if you, for example, say you are running on a large fleet, this data will be scalable and is on the critical path for recovery. So it needs to be high available as well. So there is a lot of sources need to go in this side. But if we're talking only about the Kafka side, you have two sides that need to redirect. One is the consumer, which is a straightforward, like this is the easy one. You can direct, you can like if their offset is on the other side, or even a close by offset on the other side, you can directly fill them there. Worst case, they will reprocess some data, but they're not gonna be losing much unless the data, of course, didn't make it there. But from their perspective, they will reprocess data if there was a lag for them. But a producer is different story. A producer is much harder one, because, for example, what would mean for a producer if there was a lag on the mirroring? Like, is this reducer accepting a data loss? If it doesn't accept a data loss, right now the solutions that people do is they replay. So who will trigger this replay on the proxy situation? It might be a bit improvement when we have the sync of the cluster, like the sync mode of the cluster mirroring, which is a follow-up, and we are working on this follow-up as well right now to see what the async mirroring cannot support and will benefit from the sync one. So if you have the sync, for example, you can say for the customers that cannot tolerate the data loss at all, they can simply enable the sync, and if incident happens, the proxy will safely direct them, because for sure you will have a zero lag. There is no any issue with this. But if you don't have the sync mode in your mirroring and you cannot ensure lag zero, it's not as straightforward as the consumer. Like the reducer, you get into more depths about like business requirement about data loss and stuff like this.
That's so cool. I hadn't thought about that before, of like just how much of a pain mirroring over on produce is, of being like, well, if it doesn't arrive at this cluster and it does at the other, what do you do then? Like, yeah, so proxy's cool, but some big problems to figure out before they're a perfect solution or even close to a perfect solution.
It's not only on the proxy side. There is part of it that we need to agree in the community that the sync mode works for everyone as well, and it will improve some use cases, and we need to adopt it as well.
Awesome. This has been such a fascinating conversation. Honestly, I think I could sit here and ask you questions about Kafka all day. I do have one final question for you before we wrap up, though, which is, what's the one most underrated thing about the Apache Kafka project today?
I think it's the internal replication protocol. Like once you start to get like into the deep design of this protocol, is fascinating, and a lot of people take it for granted. And they don't try to like understand a lot of the details of it, and is very amazing protocol. It's very robust, and I think it's one of the underrated things that people have a lot of knowledge around. People know how it works, like what is the result of it, but they don't know like the details of how it's been implemented and a lot of the things that they try to solve.
I think it's a very fair answer. I think I'd given very little thought to the internal replication protocol until our conversation today, and now I'm fascinated to learn more. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I really enjoyed this conversation. This was great.
Me too.
And thank you to everyone who joined us live for another episode of Get Kafkanated. Next time we'll be hearing more from the community. We have some very exciting speakers lined up for you for next month, so do keep an eye out. If you've got topics you'd like us to explore, you'd like to be a guest on the show, or you have feedback for today's episode, please do reach out to me on LinkedIn. We're always looking for new voices and perspectives from the Kafka community. Thanks for listening.